Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, Raymond H. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. As with all battery developments, we need to be cautious, but we do have Sila Nanotech and Group 14, both saying they're almost ready to begin high volume commercial shipments of their silicon electrodes this year. For Americans, these would be companies to root for, as Sila is based in California and Group 14 is based in Washington. Group 14 is planning to ship silicon anodes to 3 undisclosed EV and EV battery customers by the end of this year. The claims: these silicon-dominant anodes would boost driving range around 50% and recharging to 80% of capacity in less than 15 minutes. Thus far, Mercedes is the only automaker that's publicly said they plan to use these Sila electrodes in an upcoming G-Class SUV by the middle of the decade. Silicon in the anode can theoretically hold 10 times more lithium by weight than graphite, and could allow very fast charging because lithium ions move much faster in and out of silicon than they do graphite. Right now, some Model S and X batteries from Panasonic do have some silicon oxide in the anode, but it's only around 5%, and these new anodes from Sila and Group 14 would have a majority of silicon. They're saying the ideal amount of graphite to replace is 80 to 85%. But one of the trade-offs, these silicon anodes will be more expensive, especially to start. The co-founder of Sila said they expect to match or beat the price of graphite anodes for a full battery pack after Sila reaches large-scale production in around 4 years. And I would add, getting to that point with all of the commercialization and all of the testing that's going to be needed to prove this new technology is not a guarantee. But if Sila or Group 14 can actually figure this out and commercialize it, that would give an American battery company the chance, at least for a time, to perhaps jump some of the Chinese battery suppliers that have dominated the space for a long time, at least when it comes to some performance and density metrics. Commercializing this technology would not be totally unprecedented, as the Lightning LS218, an electric motorcycle, is already using an anode dominated by silicon. Over the past year, the price for LFP battery cells in China has dropped 51% to an average of $53 per kilowatt hour. The average global price of those batteries last year was $95 per kilowatt hour. Part of that is thanks to the cathode share of the total cost for an LFP cell in China has fallen from 50% at the beginning of last year to less than 30% this year. We've heard time and time again this year that battery overcapacity is now a problem coming out of China, and we're learning capacity utilization of battery plants in China fell from 51% in 2022 to 43% last year and will be lower again this year. And now at the pack level, LFP pack prices are around $75 per kilowatt hour. At that price, EVs can be priced at or below combustion cars in most vehicle segments. It will take some time for those prices to be fully reflected outside of China, but some of that is already happening. Friendly reminder, just last year, Toyota was arguing that there were not enough batteries to go around and that sharing them between hybrids was a better way to reduce emissions. I'd like to read one paragraph from a recent article written by James Dauma titled FSD as a Service. This right here can serve as a cheat code for you anytime somebody says, well, if Tesla figures out FSD, then everybody else is just going to do the same thing. James said, by contrast, Tesla has durable advantages in the robotaxi space. It's the only entity with an existing fleet of millions of robotaxi-capable vehicles already deployed. It's uniquely positioned to rapidly ramp up the manufacturing base for a new generation of low-cost self-driving vehicles. No other large-volume manufacturer makes electric, software-driven, internet-connected vehicles with all-around cameras, redundant computer-controlled critical control and sensing systems, and powerful compute. Nobody else has the data center infrastructure, the domain expertise, the custom hardware design and manufacturing capabilities, and the massive software development resources. Nobody else is vertically integrated and self-sufficient in their ability to bring together all the elements to make widespread robotaxi service a near-term reality. And there are no credible candidates for another company that might gain those in the near future. Tesla is unique. When in doubt, read this paragraph. This article from Electric, which is basically taken from a Business Insider report, is just going to be a lightning rod of an article. BI said based on conversations with current and former Tesla employees, say Tesla has been optimizing FSD neural nets specifically for routes taken by Elon and Tesla influencers producing FSD content. A former Tesla employee said it seemed like we were purposely making Elon's car better to make autopilot look different than it was. It felt dishonest. BI also said the company created a system to prioritize data from drivers most likely to share their experience online. These drivers are internally referred to as VIP users, and their data is at times put in VIP queues. Some employees claimed that was due to those content creators pushing the system to its limits, and therefore it makes sense to train the neural nets to handle those situations. On one hand, you can argue, well, it's just a wise marketing strategy from Tesla. You have the main FSD content creators getting millions of impressions. You want them to show progress over time, and given they are good at testing and pushing the limits, it would make sense to focus on those. But on the other hand, you have the more cynical take that it's all just another deception from Elon and he's trying to make the software look better than it actually is. But with that argument, it's not like Elon isn't allowing anybody with FSD to post their own experience. Finally, several annotators who talked to BI confirmed they were tasked to specifically work on routes around Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter, as well as a house previously owned by Elon. But honestly, is it really that crazy or nefarious for Elon to actually see and experience some of the bleeding edge technology? I think it's pretty obvious it would be important for Elon to see what type of improvements and what rate of improvement is possible by focusing on his routes. Then you can take some of those learnings about the current architecture and how they're approaching the problem and distribute it to the rest of the fleet. What do you guys think? Much ado about nothing or something more? Tesla did raise the price of all Model 3 trims by about $1,600 US, but they told us this was going to happen and it's likely in response to the new tariffs from the EU. Model 3s sold in Germany are coming from Shanghai. Joey Klender shared some more pictures of a Tesla Model 3 seemingly doing some robotaxi camera placement testing. I wanted to show you the zoomed in option so you can see how these camera angles are a bit different. Here's the side view with the cameras a bit further back, and here's the third picture of one of the side repeater cameras. The wholesale number for Tesla China in June came in at 71,007, which leaves 11,746 for export. That gives us a new wholesale number year over year for January through June of Tesla Shanghai down 11.7%, and when it comes to exports over the same time period, they're down 18.7%. Last June, the wholesale number was 93,600 and the export was 19,400. But despite Tesla's slowdown in Shanghai, the Model Y is still the best-selling new energy vehicle in China for the first half of the year. The Model Y currently holds a 40,000 unit lead over the number 2 vehicle, the Seagull from BYD. The Model Y was also the best-selling imported car in South Korea in the first half of this year. And sure, you can say that's all to be expected given the Model Y was the best-selling car in the world last year, but let's not forget that was last year. This is a new year. It would be awesome for Tesla to go back to back with the Model Y given its quote-unquote outdated model lineup. Some details from the courtroom and Elon's comp plan came out from yesterday. The word is Judge McCormick will make a single ruling later this year when it comes to both the attorney fees and the ratification consequences of the vote. Again, showing you the type of person we're dealing with, Greg Verallo, the lead plaintiff's lawyer, said that Elon's efforts to reinstate his pay plan has been a clown show. I say we all vote to take away Greg's compensation for the past 6 years and see how he responds. Tesla and its directors have collectively hired around 10 top law firms, both from Delaware and New York, to plead their case. Lawyers representing some Tesla shareholders, including CalPERS and ARK Invest, also registered appearances with the court. Greg Verallo also said, to put it bluntly, litigating against Tesla is never easy. And he maintained that there was no basis in Delaware case law for a shareholder vote to retroactively upend a court ruling. I'm no lawyer, but when that court ruling was predominantly based on a shareholder vote and the specific faults with it, well, when those faults are taken away, seems to me like there should now be a basis to upend a court ruling like that. Just to be clear, because I've been getting some messages about this, AJ on X was trying to argue that Tesla's reported energy deployment numbers is what Tesla recognizes in the profit and loss statement in that same quarter. I'll be honest, his rationale here is a bit confusing, but for whatever it's worth, he said you can work out the implied average megawatt hour revenue, which is remarkably stable. First and foremost, on Tesla's 10Q, it literally has energy generation and storage sales and deferred revenue. And that deferred revenue is recognized as revenue ratably over the respective customer contract term. For quarter 1 2023, the total transaction price allocated to performance obligations that were unsatisfied or partially unsatisfied for contracts with an original expected length of more than 1 year was $209 million. And of that amount, they expect to recognize a set amount over the next 12 months, and the remaining over a period up to 25 years. So if all of Tesla Energy's deployment numbers were immediately recognized in the P&L in that same quarter, why would they have deferred revenue? And second, to debunk his average megawatt hour revenue claim, quarter 4 of 2022, Tesla Energy deployed 2,462 megawatt hours. Then in quarter 1 2023, that number jumped to 3,889 megawatt hours. Doing the math, that's a 58% deployment bump quarter over quarter. And scrolling down a bit to Tesla's energy generation and storage revenue for quarter 4 2022, it was $1.3 billion. Fast forward to quarter 1, and it was $1.5 billion. Doing the math, that's only an 8% revenue jump when deployments over the exact same time were up 58%. And that quarterly discrepancy was actually pointed out to me by Bradford Ferguson over at Rebellionaire, and I also checked with Matt Smith, who's also at Rebellionaire, and both confirmed my take, which was that Tesla Energy does not immediately recognize all of the revenue and profits from the energy deployments. And this is not sponsored or anything like that, but if you're into investing in individual stocks and dabbling with options and risk management, it may be worth sending a message to the Rebellionaire team and getting in touch with Bradford or Matt. So again, just be careful who you listen to online. The Paris Olympics are being used by Toyota to promote hydrogen cars, buses, and other vehicles as a solution to climate change. But we have a letter signed by more than 120 academics, scientists, and engineers from around the world saying that hydrogen-powered vehicles require 3 times more electricity than battery electric cars for equivalent duty. The letter is arguing that Toyota promoting hydrogen vehicles at the Olympics is going to mislead billions of people by exposing them to false information. It's now internationally accepted in industry and academia that electrification of vehicles is the most effective intervention to decarbonizing the transport sector. I think it's funny that about 30 days ago, Toyota put out a press release arguing that this hydrogen fuel cell technology has proved its quality over a decade of commercial production. They said Toyota has continued to refine the tech since 1992, and in 2015, the Mirai became the world's first mass-produced hydrogen fuel cell sedan. So Toyota's big argument here is Mirai sales. It turns out the most Mirais Toyota has ever sold in a year dating back nearly a decade was 2,700, and that was last year. Replying to this, Elon said hydrogen is silly for cars and only barely sensible for rockets, where payload is around 1,000 times more valuable. Steve Jurvetson added, Toyota has been mistaken about hydrogen for 10 years. After our dinner with Elon in 2014, Toyota's CEO returned to Japan to abruptly cancel their EVs in favor of hydrogen fuel cells. Residents in the UK are getting the message from Tesla that they're now offering 0% interest rates in the UK, specifically for the Model 3 and the Model Y. The House Ways and Means Committee voted in favor of a bill that would undo the federal EV tax credits, arguing the rules would result in US taxpayer dollars flowing to Chinese companies. companies. I think that's rather ironic when the entire point of these EV tax credits is to wean us off of the Chinese supply chain. But these Republicans are arguing the Biden admin is sacrificing our economic independence in order to force more Americans to drive an electric vehicle. Let's community note that one because incentives don't force anybody to do anything. The House already passed two similar bills earlier this year, but neither of them have been taken up by the Senate. NextEra Energy is in the final stages of a new massive battery storage project in Fresno County, California. This would be a 3 gigawatt system, and if the average is a 4-hour duration, this could be a 12 gigawatt hour project when it's done. This would be a standalone BESS across 260 acres. We don't yet know who's going to supply the batteries because the developer is considering two different technology approaches using solely lithium ion or a mix of lithium ion and iron flow battery tech. Either way, the first phase of construction is expected to commence this year, and the entire facility is expected to be online no later than 2032. Ford has now lost out on roughly $600 million in incentives for its EV battery plant in Marshall. Ford has scaled back the scope of the project, and now the state is scaling back the incentives. The state is also rescinding a $100 million grant because the output of F-150 Lightnings is a fraction of previously anticipated volumes. BYD is investing $1 billion in Turkey to set up an EV and a plug-in hybrid vehicle factory with an annual capacity of 150,000 units. It's slated to begin production before the end of 2026, and they're attempting to reach customers in Europe, and this is in response, again, to those tariffs. Lucid is recalling around 5,000 vehicles thanks to intermittent hardware connection faults, which can lead to vehicles losing propulsion without warning. But Lucid has already issued a software update for this issue. The 2025 Cadillac Escalade IQ, the fully electric version, is going to start at $130,000. Production is set to begin in October of this year, and it's to be made in Michigan. GM Mexico is partnering with Tesla to build 1,000 charging points in Mexico. GM said the charging network in Mexico will be ready by August or September 2025. Tesla stock closed the day at $262.33, up 3.71%, while the Nasdaq was up 0.14%. This is now 10 consecutive days in the green for Tesla stock. The last time Tesla stock did something like this was summer of last year when it was green for 13 days in a row. It was yet another big volume day for Tesla, trading about 70 million shares above the average volume the past 30 days. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X, linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.